Hi, I'm Logan Hickey.
And I'm Robertson Wickens, also known as basically a basement goblin, also known as a part-time pirate.
Basement Goblin and Pirate. You can put that on your resume.
It already is.
Oh, and this is Quick Call an Adult, the podcast where we take questions that we've sourced from what did I call this the other day? Our FFLLs, our friends, family, loved ones, and listeners. And we answer them on this podcast to the best of our abilities and sometimes with absurd results.
Absolutely. There's a reason why it's called Quick Call an Adult and not Quick Call Us.
It should be Quick Call Adultier Adults.
Adulty adults.
That could be our mini, like if we do like a mini episode, we could have like our actual parents or other adultier adults on to like quick fire questions at them.
We have guest adults on the series.
Guest adult. Just, hi, I am the guest adult today.
They just roll their eyes at us. I will say, in regards to that, I spoke with my parents. If you're listening, hey, mama, papa. But I was like, so what'd you think? Some feedback. And they were like, no, it was really good. But Rob, you can be really juvenile sometimes. And I was like, well, yeah. What else did you expect?
It's called Quick Call an Adult, not we are the adultiest adults.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I just heard my very like S sounding S in like the feedback and I just like cringed a little bit.
It could have been my like raspy ghoul laugh that I just did there.
I love that.
Oh yeah, I realized we never pointed this out last time. We are actually not in the same room.
No,
we are across the city from each other,
yeah,
keeping COVID safe.
Yeah, we're about an hour away.
But yeah.
We're socially responsible and socially distant podcasting.
Yeah, so we'll have a big, like, as opposed to a giant face reveal at a certain milestone, we'll just have a actually us in the same room milestone.
Yeah, that'll be huge.
Face reveal comes after that.
The goal would be to be successful enough on this podcast that we can get an apartment with an extra room that we can turn into like a recording studio and make that our little like podcast studio.
Stop. It could be my little goblin den.
No, podcast. No, we'll call it Goblin Den. We could
Yes.
get a sign made up. Logan and Robertson's Goblin Den. And then when people ask, we just give them ambiguous answers.
We look really sad, stare off into the distance, and we're like, we don't talk about that.
You're like, don't talk about the Goblin Room. Never
Don't
talk
what?
about the Goblin Room.
How dare you ask? Just leave. You know what? Just leave.
We could be like Beast from Beauty and the Beast. You don't go into the West Wing.
That is me. I am the Beast in Beauty. I'm the Luigi of Mario and Luigi.
It's okay. If you're Luigi, I'm Wario because I'm fat and sassy.
I love that video.
I'm just gonna get all fat and sassy.
Sassy.
The amount of times in my like weekly life where I say fat and sassy. This is the first. No.
You're like thinking about it. You're like, oh, I said it for the bit, but it's not true.
Oh my God. I think we just found the name of this episode. Fat and Sassy.
There it is. Slap that on a mug and sell it for a higher price.
Problem solved. Before we do get into the questions though this week, which were so lovingly given to us, just two quick shout outs. The first one is thank you to our now over 80 in 1 week. Over 80 people have liked our Facebook page, and quite a few people seem to have been listening to our podcast because both Robertson and I have gotten some pretty good feedback on it. So big shout out. I am super shocked that we're almost at 100 already and it's only week 1.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I thought we'd be like episodes 30 and we'd have our 6 closest friends and family just sitting there being like, yeah, it's funny.
It's a podcast.
It's you keep at it.
And secondly, I just wanted to actually a quick shout out to all of the incoming first terms for Randolph College of the Performing Arts, because they actually gave me my 4 questions. Only 3 of them I'm answering this week. 1 will be bumped to next week, but they actually sourced my questions. So quick shout out. I adore all of you, and I'm super excited to hopefully have you listen to this. If none of you listen to this, nobody's gonna friggin' know that I shouted you out.
Yeah, they will never know. It'll be lost into the ether. Actually, quick, a piece of advice for incoming students. What would you say?
Oh God, treat everybody with kindness. You might not like anybody. You might not like anybody.
You
You
and
might not like everybody, but you will have to work with them. And so, even if you hate someone in your class, um, don't talk shit about them. Don't spread rumors, don't talk shit, especially within the walls of the school. That stuff gets around. It creates toxicity, not only within the school, but within your
toxicity.
term. Toxicity within your school and your term, and that will get around our industry. For context, for those of you who have no idea who the fuck either of us are, we're both
Oh yeah.
performers based in Toronto. The industry seems very big, but it is much smaller than you might think. Everybody
Oh,
kind
it's
of knows who
tiny.
everyone is. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you want to, just be professional. You don't have to like everybody, but you got to work with them.
Yep. That is definitely true. The reason I ask is because, yeah, what with everything with the buildings closed down, I remember one of the coolest moments of starting at the school was they got all of us. I graduated from Randolph 4 years ago now, coming up on 5, if I'm correct. I don't know. I don't pay attention.
You're
But
old. Just kidding. I'm older. I'm
I'm
the adult year of the adults.
that we'll let the viewers decide if that's scary or not. Yeah, and we all sat in one of the theaters, and a bunch of the upper terms just came in, and they went around in a circle, and each of us said a nice little piece of adulting. Oh my goodness gracious, Sister Ignatius, a little piece of advice. And yeah, and then we just all hung out and got to chat. And so it's kind of sad. They don't necessarily get to get that in person. They just get to get the two of us shouting at them over a podcast.
But you know what, though? Once everything with this pandemic gets cleared up and all the colleges are back and whatnot, it's gonna be awesome because they'll already. It'll be a weird dynamic because they'll already have known each other because they'll be in classes for a while,
Oh,
but
true.
never actually like seeing each other in person. So I think it'll be a whole new level of wonder.
It'll be euphoric.
It'll be kind of cool. Let's
Oh,
get
yes.
on to these lovely questions. The reason why
Let's
we
do it.
came here.
Sorry. I just knocked over my Tostitos.
Oh no, your Tostitos.
Sorry. Got really excited. Here we go. All right. Question number 1. If you're at home, give a drum roll. Here we go. What is the weirdest thing that is currently on your resume? Also, if you did do a drum roll and you're sitting by yourself, think about why you did that.
Oh God, weirdest thing on a resume. I honestly, I
Yeah.
don't have anything weird on my resume. Like, other than literally, I make announcer voices, like radio announcers, like next
Oh,
time on Quick, call an adult, that kind of thing. And strange voices, I think, is the weirdest thing. I don't really have anything of, that absurd on it.
that's fair. That's fair. Also, once again, a little nod to if people don't know this, because I had to explain this to someone recently. We have our work resume that we put like our basic like real life jobs on,
Mhm.
and then we have a secondary resume for just performance stuff, and it is totally acceptable in the special skills to write like I have that I work on a boat in my special skills. My weirdest 2 are probably that I can do a plankton voice and I can do an Elmo voice. And the way I learned both of those skills, here's a little, hold on to your little seatbelts here. The way I learned that I could do both of those, number 1, as I mentioned prior in episode 1, I am a middle child, which means I have to fight for attention because I annoyed my family I annoyed them to the extent that it was probably best just to ignore me. So I learned how to pitch my voice up, and then they got used to it. So I had to learn to pitch it up higher, to the point where I could just talk like this. Apparently I can't do it anymore, which in turn led to an Elmo voice.
That's adorable.
And then second, and now I'm outing myself as being a freaking weirdo. Second one, we were on the pirate ship, and we finished one of the sails, and one of the other crew members turned to me and they're like, "So, anything else we need to find before we set up back onto the land?" And I said, just one thing. We need to find the Krabby Patty secret formula.
Oh my God, that's actually pretty good.
Thank you. And that was the first time I'd ever attempted it. And the whole ship went quiet and everyone looked at me like, "Did he just do that?"
You're like, yes, I did.
And I had to quickly be like, anyway, thank you for coming to the show. Let's just leave right now.
You're like, I am not the plankton. This is not the plankton you were looking for.
Also, just gonna put out the fine print there. If you're wondering, yes, that is the only sentence I can say in that voice.
There's nothing else you can do in the voice.
Pretty well now.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, no, but even the funny thing is, the longer you're in this industry and the more sort of things that you do, the more you have just like varied, tailored resumes. Because like, not only do we have our like normal human work resume where it's like I worked in customer service for 10 years, but like we do have the acting resume. If you're doing voice work, you're probably going to have a separate resume that's mostly just the voice work. If you're doing like, if you're auditioning for theater, you want a version of your resume that is mostly your theater credits, where if you're auditioning for film or TV, you want your film and TV credits. So like you'll end up having like 5 or 6 different resumes, and you
Yeah,
just
that
got to
is
make
true.
sure you send the right one.
Oh, I just thought work wise, I was a clock for a day. I was a clock head for a day. That's probably the weirdest role I had to play.
I love that. I love
Just
that.
had to, I had to walk around with a clock on my head that gave me knots in my neck for about a month.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, it was for Canada Day. Just a
You're a
little
clock.
backstory. Yeah, so they're handing out the costumes, and they're like, "So you're gonna be a Maple Leaf. You're gonna be Captain Canada. You're gonna be like I think someone was in like this weird, almost beaver moose esque morph suit thing, and then they turned to me and they're like, "Oh, and you're gonna be a clock." I was like, "I'm sorry, I think I misheard you. Did you say clock?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, just wear a suit and we'll give you a clock to wear on your head."
That's very odd, but kind of interesting, I guess.
Yeah, and weirdly, people like because it was for a big parade thing. People really liked the fact that there was just a random clock in the parade. So a lot of people wanted to take pictures with me and the person that was there was a Mr. Clock and a Mrs. Clock.
Oh,
And it was basically a bike helmet with many pounds of wood in the shape of a clock on it, and it was like only attached to our heads.
how heteronormative. On that note, my first question of the day is, what kind of stuff did you still need to call your parents to ask them how to do something? So what do you still need help with, or what did you still need help with?
Okay. I mean, laundry is a big thing. There's definitely some times where it's like, because recently, I didn't realize until I'd ruined 90% of my non-black clothing, which is maybe like 3 shirts, um, that my necklace rusts when I'm running around on a boat, sweating like nobody's business and getting sprayed with water cannons. Um, and it destroyed all my shirts. So I called up my parents again. I'm like, how do I fix this? And it just seems like every time that I have to ask that, it's some laundry related question.
Interesting. For
Yeah.
for me, it was plumbing of all things, because my dad is a pretty damn handyman. Like he can, pretty damn wait, pretty damn good handyman. I missed a word. He's a pretty damn handyman. What?
Looking good while doing it.
Maybe that's the title. Pretty damn handyman.
Pretty.
But he's a pretty good damn handyman. Damn good handyman. That's going to
Yeah.
be on my mind the rest of this podcast. Jesus. And he can fix pretty much anything. There's a few things that he can't like pull apart. He's really good with his hands. So I knew that, like I inherited some of the handiness because I watched him and helped him do a lot of the projects around the house, which I hated doing because little gay Logan, of course, he doesn't want to do sports, and of course, he doesn't want to use tools. But now I am a responsible apartment owner or apartment
Hey.
renter, I guess.
Hey
Um,
yo.
but there was an issue I had with the toilet. Plumbing is just something I've never gone near, and so I had to get his help. And he drove out the one day, and we replaced the parts together and took the toilet off together, and it was a lot of fun, and I learned quite a bit from it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, because and well now, and the two of us do a lot of maintenance and fixie stuff these days. And at
Yeah,
the
I literally
beginning,
got hired for it.
yeah, and same with me. Oh, that is another thing I will say. Advice going back. If you are in theater, really learn as much as you can.
Mm,
Because like I learned how to work on a boat. Now I work on a boat that I also perform on, and like I learned how to fix things. I help fix the boat, and I also take crew calls for tech stuff. So like it really helps to learn a lot of stuff, and definitely in the beginning. Me papa is very good at fixing stuffs as well, so he's been a big help with that too.
Oh, good.
And shout out to mamas as well. You killing it out there as well. You killing the
Oh
game.
my God, my mom is like the glue that holds this family together. Not like we have like many problems interpersonally as a family, but she definitely is like just so good at holding everything together, which is quite nice.
My mom is old. No, okay.
And not
I'm gonna
listening to this podcast anymore.
No, she can't figure out how to work technology. It's okay. She literally, we were calling and she's like, how do I like something on Facebook? And I hear my sister in the back and go, oh my God, mom, I showed you. No, I will say, my mom and I, we constantly, so when I was younger, I was getting bullied a lot, as we all do. And it's like a rite of passage as a young kid. And my mom, I like didn't really know how to stand up for myself. And so my mom was like, you know what? I'm going to teach him how to stand up to bullies by bullying him myself. So
Oh my
my mom
God.
started making fun of me, and I would talk back to her, and like we would just like all in good spirits. We would make fun of each other, and then like after time had passed, she's like, "This is how you stand up to bullies, the way you've been standing up to me." And it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, "Oh yeah,"
A
but it
good,
never
sneaky
stopped.
teaching moment.
Yeah. So my mom will still like I will literally be out and about, and someone I was out somewhere and while I was teaching kids, and they were like, "What is something that's as old as the dinosaurs?" And I said, "My mother." I just slipped out.
Oh no.
And I called her that night, and she literally like I hear the phone drop and I hear my dad go, "Oh my God, she's crying again." And I can hear her wheezing. She's laughing so hard.
That's so funny.
So she's probably gonna hear me call her old and just like have to pause it. She's laughing so hard.
Yeah, no, my mom's got a great sense of humor. Um, she definitely just like jokingly will like out of nowhere come with the like driest, most serious sounding like dig at me, which is like totally in good spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like it's the funniest shit. Like I'm really happy with my relationship with both my parents because they're fantastic.
Oh, me too. Yeah. First episode, my mom was actually, she was like, "Do you not like me anymore?" I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You were being really nice to me on the podcast." And is something wrong?
I know we gotta every once in a while we have to like casually plug a like thank you to our families because otherwise who the frick knows? Like they listen, so all of a sudden you're gonna get a call and be like, "So what? You don't like us anymore?" Like, and for me it would be like, "So you want to get out of our house now?" Because I'm like
Yeah.
living here. So if I badmouth my parents on our podcast, they're gonna listen to it in the room beside me because their bedroom's beside mine, and be like, "Logan, pack up and get out." So I gotta make sure I'm plugging them.
Yeah, I'll be like, well, see, it's the opposite. I got to make sure I'm making fun of them, or I'll be like, "Hey, so I think I'm gonna fly home for Christmas," and they'll be like, "Oh,
No.
can I wait a little bit? Let's push back."
It's Christmas Eve and you're like, "So mom, when am I flying out?" And she's like, "You're not.
They're
Surprise."
just like, "You lost your sense of humor. You don't get to stay with us anymore."
I'm sorry, mom.
Sorry, mama. Actually, speaking of parents, my second question actually comes straight from Papa himself.
Oh, I love it.
So once again, I feel like this is going to come up a lot. Middle child. So my father, I drive him crazy for the sole purpose of driving him crazy. Um, and so I do that by excessively asking him hypothetical questions. And my dad has done a lot of things in his life, so I can ask him things like anywhere, like hypotheticals of like what would happen if I ran up and kicked a person in a shopping mall, or what would happen if all of a
What?
sudden a, a tiger jumped on me. Like, I don't know. And so like my dad hates hypotheticals. And so he asked me, why the hell do young people like hypotheticals so much? What is the point of them? So that is the question I will pose today. Why hypotheticals?
Because reality is too freaking scary to deal with.
Ooh, good answer. Good answer.
Like, really, why do you think we have a generation of people who are growing up like focused on video games and like imaginary worlds and creating, because you know what, the reality we live in at even at the best of times right now is still horrifying. Like I know I use video games for an escape, so anything like in that
Hmm.
fantastical sort of like, you know, all of a sudden, like what if a car blew up and nobody got hurt, but the car just like exploded, like you know, spontaneous
Mm.
combustion. Like, ooh, things would be more interesting. Or like the tiger thing. Like I don't know, it keeps our mind engaged elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that. See, and when you as I was listening to you there, it clicked in my brain because it made me think. It's like trying to explain a joke to someone that you find funny but you don't fully get yourself. Uh, I was like, why do I ask people hypotheticals? And because I always thought of it as like it reveals a lot about that person, like their answer. You get to learn a little bit more about them. But I just thought about it. And I'm like, it's kind of like when we were kids, it was that whole like we would be standing across our bedrooms from our friends. We'd be like Final Fantasy bouncing, and it'd be like, I send firebolt, and you're like, no, you don't. I dodge, and the other one's like, you can't dodge.
Well, the
It's
problem.
like,
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
well, like hypotheticals are our way as adults of doing make believe scenarios. They're the like socially
Mm,
acceptable way of making up these worlds, and like it's just playing, and I think that's fun.
it is playing, and I mean, I think that when people lose that sense of play, they start to age. Like, and I mean, that sounds kind of bizarre, maybe, but like, I'm a 27-year-old man. I love the fantasy world and I love playing and my like writing stories and creating dialogues in my head for whatever, for plays, for whatever, like that playing, that make believe. um and I find that when we lose that sense of play, that pleasure to play, as one of my acting teachers has said, then we start to lose a lot of what makes us energetic.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see the people who have lived to like in their late 90s. Sure, of course, like just good health is a factor, but like I look at like Betty White, she's still in her 90s, quick as a whip, pokes fun at things, is silly, you know, enjoys herself, enjoys her time, still drools over hot men, you know what I mean? Like they still have this pleasure to play. these
Yeah.
these people who have aged, we'll say aged well, really, like aged in good health with whatever. It's because they're still childlike in their demeanor. You know, they have the ability to switch from like, okay, this situation requires me to be mature and to focus more, versus the situation I can be silly. And I think the moment that we lose that pleasure to play, is that moment where we start aging. um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like just because you're an adult does not mean you can't enjoy a video game. You know, just
Yeah.
because you're an adult does not mean that you can't, you know, play with lightsabers with your best friend in the backyard.
Right. Final Fantasy bounce.
Exactly. Like it's that fun play. I can say again, pleasure to play that keeps us youthful. You
Yeah.
know, like personally, I know that I can compartmentalize a little bit in terms of I know when to put on stern Logan face and be in a crisis and make and handle that crisis, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that if I rip ass at the dinner table, my whole family's gonna laugh because we are all oh my god, that was way TMI for this podcast, but it's okay. Because we all still have, like my mom, my dad, my brother, we all have that pleasure to play. You know, we enjoy
Yeah.
silliness, and to be honest, it makes the scarier stuff a little less scary, because
Oh
you
yeah.
know that you can make a silly joke and that tension can lessen a bit.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
like
I will definitely say I've been very fortunate these days for the past couple months now. That because it's like it's no surprise, world's a bit different right now,
mhm.
but it's been amazing to take the break and go onto a boat and improvise as a pirate, and then go into a classroom and teach kids how to dance. And it's like, and I like, we are in performance for a reason.
Mhm.
It's just playing it. And so I constantly joke that it's like I don't have a real job because it doesn't feel like I'm working.
But you also enjoy your job, right? Like some
I
people
love what
have
I
that
do.
same pleasure, and enjoyment doing office work. That's just not us, right? But
Hmm.
they have found their enjoyment and their pleasure to play in that office work.
Yeah.
Um, it's the people who all of a sudden everything is so damn serious that you just like, are you really happy? You know?
Hmm.
And I think my biggest thing that I've taken away from all this with the pandemic and everything is find the things that make you happy. Yes, there's a global crisis and there's social issues that need attention right now. So you have to make sure that you have something, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, you have to find something that brings you enjoyment. Even if you spend 23 hours a day focusing on dealing with the pandemic and making sure you and your family are okay, or going to these protests or whatever, you still need a little bit of time to just be human and enjoy something, because
Hmm.
otherwise, if everything is so serious all the time, then I mean personally, it makes me very tense, and then that diminishes my quality of life.
Yeah.
I'm not in any way saying that you should be ignorant of what's going on and
Hmm.
ignore what's going on. This is the slightly political section of of the podcast,
Here we go. We got
but
this.
you have to, no matter what the scenario is, you have to find reason to get at least a little bit of enjoyment out of life. Because
Yeah.
if everybody just shuts down and gets upset about everything going on 24/7, then it just increases, I find, like animosity in people, and then people
Hmm.
are quicker to anger. Um, and like, for the record, I think everybody should be as educated as possible on on the issues that are happening right now, with issues of like Black Lives Matter protests, in terms of fighting the systemic racism both in Canada and the US right now. Um, if you focus on Canada is racist and America is racist 24/7, then it taxes the person.
Yeah. Well, we have this. When I was learning, uh, I was a security guard for a while, and when I was going through my training, I had a good conversation with my mother actually, and she said something that I will always carry with me. Um, she gave me a scenario where it was you're at a NASCAR race and a car loses control, hits the audience, and hits the announcer booth. Um, Dark turn, woo! But it's so you've got injured civilians, you've got injured announcers, the driver's injured. Who is the first person you save? And I thought about it for a long time, and I was trying to figure it out. And the answer is you save yourself first, because if you are not okay, you are just another casualty, and if you are not okay, you cannot save anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Now, that
So
being said,
absolutely,
I just
uh,
want to acknowledge that the reason that we can have this conversation and advocate for that stuff is based in our white privilege.
yeah,
Like, we don't have to worry about, because of our skin color, we don't have to worry about that extra hour of free time. Could something go wrong here? Because we could go out and enjoy something. So it's even without worries about persecution. And I think that it's important to also acknowledge that. And I think a big point and a big part of all of this adulting and all of this self-awareness and whatnot is that those of us who do have white privilege, you need to help make both Canada and the US and really around the globe a safe space for everybody, regardless of skin tone, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation. Everybody should be able to do those things, which is why the fighting's happening.
yeah, good. And
Everyone
like,
should be on that same ground.
yeah, change is going to come. And like, I'll just say one more thing on the matter. I'm sure people are coming to this to escape the stuff, and I mean that's kind of why we're doing it too. But a really cool thing I've seen is that more and more as I talk to people, a lot of people are saying like, when I ask versus 2 months ago when I started to leave my little hidey hole, uh, everyone was kind of giving the same answer of like, well, probably the same as everyone else. But now a lot of people are like, no, I'm doing arguably the best I've done, because people are making like active changes. People are like we're using this as a time to, as opposed to, hey, let's go back to normal. It's like, no, let's do better this time. Because
Mhm.
that's the cool thing about starting from the ground up, is you can do it right.
Well, let's
And you
build
can
a
you
system
can mow the
together.
lawn while someone record.
I was gonna say, is someone
Oh
doing
no,
some yard work?
they're tearing up the road. I'm so sorry I yelled at you. You're just doing your job, but I'm gonna close my
Yeah, no, there's no way we can go back to the old normal because the old normal was broken. So let's make a new normal where everyone can be successful
Everyone
together.
could do cartwheels and cut that out.
Everyone can do cartwheels without having to worry about anything,
Yeah.
right? Like we just yeah, we have to do better as a society, for
Yeah.
all parts of society. Which actually kind of does segue a little bit into my question, which was, when did you
Nice.
realize that grown-ups didn't have life figured out either? Um, because let's get serious.
I
All of your life is just doing the best that you can, flying by the seat of your pants, and hoping that you are happy with how your life is. Like, really,
yeah.
that's life. And I think that the moment that I figured out that grown-ups didn't have life figured out either was
The Gromans.
the grown is that what I said?
It sounded like you were gonna say that.
When did you realize that the Gromans didn't have life figured out? It's actually the little known historical Greek Roman Empire. They merged for a while. No, that's a lie.
Sorry, I thought of something and then I simultaneously decided it wasn't funny.
That was Robertson rebooting. Um, but yeah, I think like the biggest moment was just like when talking about money. Really, it does come down to money because I'm looking at all my student debt and whatnot, and having an honest conversation with my family about debt and stuff. um it's we often take for granted that adults seem to have everything in order, and oh well, my parents are fortunate enough to both have had jobs for the majority of their life, so they, et cetera, et cetera. But then to find out that they have similar struggles to me, and that all adults really have similar struggles in terms of like finances, because of life's expensive, and that was a normalized thing. That's when I kind of went, oh, okay, so it's not just like you graduate school and then all of a sudden everything's better. It's like, no, you got to go step by step, and you got to save for your RSPs and et cetera, et cetera. We're all human. Nobody's perfect,
Mhm.
but as a child, it's like, oh my god, my parents are the most perfect things ever. But you know what? Even when it comes to that stuff, like, no, everybody's figuring it out day by day. Like, I was not an easy child. It's not like my parents figured out how to raise a child just because they had one.
Mm.
They were flying by the seat of their pants too. um I'm a much easier adult than I was a child.
I have no comment on whether I was an easier child or an adult.
I imagine you were a little bit of a difficult child. That's just the feeling I
I think I have made that very clear.
get. So when did you realize that grown-ups didn't quite have life figured out either?
I think it really, because like I had moments of like, maybe, but then I think it fully clicked when I started teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was constantly like, because it's like kids ask questions and like it really had, I would give them advice and then I'd go home and be like, that was an interesting thing I said, of like different things of, well, it's that thing of it, like, not only because you're saying that you look at your parents and you're like, so they got it all figured out. I noticed that like my students would look and be like, oh, this person has it all figured out. They've got it all planned out. When I would literally be standing there and be like, oh, I skipped like half of the warm up. I don't know what to do now. I've run out of time. Or
Yeah.
like I would explain to them of like, this is how, like, because I'm working with some students right now that I'm trying to get rid of negative self-talk. I'm trying to cut out the doubt that they have. And then I go into an audition room and I'm like, I don't know if I'm right for this. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that weird thing of like the dualities of I can stand up in front of them and be like, huh, I've got it all figured out. And then I go into my life and I'm like, I'm just a goblin.
Well, it comes down to like kids do not realize how much improvisation
Exactly.
is the word. Yeah, even I'm improving right now. Um,
What?
Kids don't realize how much parents improv their
Mm-hmm.
raising of a child. Like that first time that you like um catch your kid, like the first time your child wanders away without telling you, like your reaction, that's that you don't have a scripted reaction. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is a teaching moment, and how do I best teach and guide my child? Parents
Yeah.
don't have stuff figured out, adults don't have stuff figured out.
We're all learning together.
Exactly, we're all collectively learning,
Yeah.
right? Like it's nobody from like from parents to teachers to nothing. Like no one has everything figured out, and everybody's kind of making things up as they go.
Unless your name is Robertson.
Robertson is perfect. He is the perfect
Robertson.
human.
And it was just the secret was having a first name that's a last name.
And life got better.
And like and from that day forth, life was good.
Well, what's your final question of the day?
Funny you should ask because I've got it right here in my hand on my phone, which is a fantastic it's technological wonder right here. So I woke up in the morning, did a sweet 360 out and landed perfectly into my socks as I start every morning, and I shuffled into my kitchen and I was scrolling through the feeds as it were, and I stumbled upon a review no less of the new Mulan movie.
Oh, I thought you were talking about us, and I was like, we got reviewed.
I mean, we someone gave us a 5 out of 5. Whoever did that,
I'm not
I'll
gonna
cuddle
lie,
you.
that was my mother.
I mean, the offer's still there.
I'll let her know, or well, she'll know when she listens.
Yeah. Hello. But anyway, um, so
Mom, this is my
I want to
friend
continue the
Robertson.
joke, but at the same time, I'm like, just focus on Mulan.
That
Um,
is my mother, okay?
that is, I'm so sorry, but yeah, it actually got an 8 out of 10, which I was not that I had any preconceived notions of it. I've been looking at it, and it looks really cool. But I know that remakes usually get torn apart,
Hmm.
so I was happily surprised to see an 8 out of 10. And then you stumbled upon news of a remake as well.
Yes, I'm super excited actually because for those of you who don't know me, I am a bit of a big gamer. I've always loved gaming. Nintendo is probably my number one entertainment system and company. And I just found out because they dropped the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Nintendo Direct today. And I found out that they're redoing the original side-scrolling Super Mario games, all three plus the game. I guess it was released at some point called the Lost Levels or something, are all coming in a Mario All Stars game, as well as the redoing Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, which is going to come out on Mario 3D All Stars. So I'm really excited for those remakes because they were just a big part of my childhood growing up. So I'm a big fan of some remakes, but they can definitely miss the mark sometimes. Like the live action Lion King, just just wasn't as good as the original, right? Um, I think if you're going to remake something, make sure it's going to be good. Like make sure that you
Yeah.
knock it out of the park because you know that the diehard fans of the original are going to be pissed otherwise.
Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, the question is, what is something we'll do a TV show or video game that you would like to see remade?
Hmm. I'm not a huge fan of all the remakes of TV shows. Not that they're not good. I just like it. To me, I'm like, did we run out of ideas for new content?
Yeah.
Um, and
There's also something about the originals that's just so like chef's kiss. So
well, it's the original. Now, sometimes if the original is horrible, like if you look at, I think it's Batman and Robin with Mister Freeze and Poison Ivy and that weird Bane, um, like that could be redone. I would love a movie with Freeze, Ivy, and Bane in it.
Yeah,
but
you're
that
talking
is
about the
not
one with
that movie.
George Clooney and the torpedo nips, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like
Ah, yeah.
remake that, sure, because the original was garbage.
Yeah.
But if the original's good, maybe don't mess with the original. Write a sequel. Continue the universe, but don't remake the original if the original is quality, right? Because then you just again
Mm,
risk upsetting an entire like fan culture, right?
mhm.
Unless you know that you're going to do it well. Like they rebooted Charmed with the main sisters. I don't know if you know Charmed. It's basically three sister witches. They get superpowers, and it's sort of everything supernatural involved around them. And I loved Charmed when I was younger, and when they rebooted it, I was like, I don't know if this will be as good, but it was awesome. From what I've seen, I've only seen a couple episodes.
Mm.
They have like three women of color are now the sisters, and it's been modernized. And there was a bit of sort of in the first couple episodes, there was a bit of that sort of that Me Too movement to it, which was awesome. Like um, they really uh, did a good job rebooting it. So something like that, totally acceptable because they knocked
Yeah.
it out of the park with relevant content, with good quality performances. Like I really enjoyed that. Now, if I was to remake anything, though, I would love, and this is just because I am a diehard Pikmin fan. I would love the first and second ones, which were on the GameCube, to get a graphics overhaul and an update
Mm.
and be ported to the Switch because I am obsessed with Pikmin. I am waiting for Pikmin 4 to come out. They haven't even formally announced it. They just said a new Pikmin game would be in the works, and I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
So that would be fun. Don't really
Yeah.
mess with the original. Maybe add a couple new bonus things, some fun little extra things, but just reskin, update the graphics, and re-release it.
Good answer. Good answer. Yeah, I would say in regards to shows or movies, I would like to see a remaster of those like super old 80s Hobbit and Lord of the Rings like musical cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
love that. I went down a rabbit hole a couple of days ago where when I was packing cuz I just moved. I did. And I was cycling through music and I went down a rabbit hole of just listening to the music. Man, Samwise got some bangers. I gotta say that. But in regards to games, because I was thinking about games it's sort of the same thing where I was like, I would love to go through them again, like Morrowind. I put too many
Mm.
hours into Morrowind, but there's something about the old style of it that's just so nostalgic. But thinking about things like that, I did come across one in my Encyclopedia Britannica uh, of knowledge when it comes to game, because when it comes to game, I am a pro gamer, as they say in the streets. But Metroid Prime, I think would be so sick. Toss that on a 4K TV, toss that onto surround sound, shut off all the lights. Mom and dad aren't home. Pick up some Mountain Dew and Doritos.
Sounds like you're getting
You're set.
romantic with your Metroid Prime. Like,
I won't. Hey, you know what? If Metroid Prime was a person and I saw him walking down the street, I would I would hold their hand genuinely, and I would compliment them on things other than their personality. If you're catching what I'm saying, I meant compliment them on their personality other than their looks.
LMAO.
See, even if I'm joking about talking to someone I'm interested into, the personification of something, I can't even do it properly joking about it.
You'd probably turn around and walk away because you'd be so anxious to talk to them.
I'd probably walk there's this goddess walking down the street, and I would totally be like, hi, and then like run away.
You just like wave awkwardly, realize that they want nothing to do with you, and then you do that awkward, like, oh, I was just scratching my head and not waving at anybody, I swear.
And like floppy hand, like dead wrist wave, and then frickin' waddle away like Tommy Pickles.
It's a very oddly specific image, but I love it.
This never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
I
You
love
weren't
it.
there. I mean,
I get it though, because like I'm so bad at talking to guys. Like if I'm interested in a guy, and I just sort of like like I inevitably just like need to reboot. I'm so bad at doing the romance.
Yeah, I feel that. If there is once again a nice little lady, I pretend like I try to think, I like think about it to the point where it's like the moment has passed and I'm now sitting on a subway 2 stops past and I'm like, no, jeepers.
You're like, I should have said hi.
That is a joke. I'm not that out of touch with reality.
I mean, really, like, romance is hard. Like,
Yeah.
I'm somebody who most of the time is completely oblivious. Like, you could be flirting with me nonstop and or giving me, the those looks of like across the room, and your eyes meet, and I
Yeah.
will have no freaking clue. I am so oblivious when it comes to people liking me. It is silly. It is
Oh, same
absolutely
Z's.
silly.
I will say though, a friend of mine brought up in regards to that stuff, and I think this is the sweetest thing. My good friend Emily, we were talking, and they were like, when this is all over, when we go back to like going out into the world and being okay with like contact and stuff like that, holding hands is going to be special again.
Oh, I know. That's so cute, right?
And I freaking love that.
Like the moment where you first hold somebody's hand that you're into, like that's gonna mean so much more. But and think of just how potent now any physical intimacy is gonna be. Holding hands, a hug. A,
Oh,
a hug is just gonna
oh,
be like emotional,
oh.
things that we
Sorry, God.
things that we take for granted, things
Yeah.
that we took for granted before. Like, are you really going to hug somebody for 30 seconds now? Probably not, unless you're involved with them in some way, whether it's as a friend or whatever. Even just like a greeting
Mm-hmm.
hug, that like primate bonding instinct, um,
Yeah.
is
Goes into
just.
our little chimpanzee part of our brain that just like fires rapidly.
Well, and it builds to that loneliness that people have been feeling during the pandemic, is that physical touch that they don't have, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can hug your housemates, sure, but when you go see your best friend who you haven't seen in 6 months because there's been a pandemic, you have to second guess whether or not you're going to hug them. So that first romantic moment on like your first date where you reach for somebody's hand and they actually grab it back, um, when you're walking, like that is going to be so significant, and it's so
Yeah.
adorable.
It'll be like junior high level butterflies of freaking touching hands and being the talk of the school.
Right? Or even just like, could you imagine after we've been going through this for 6 months, and I hope we don't have a massive second wave to shut us down again. Even just cuddling, right? Like
Oh,
there's
stop. I miss K. Huh. No, I'm kidding. Sports, guns. Huh, man. Huh.
like really though, cuddling is like, because there's some people who have been in relationships who haven't really been able to see each other through all of this.
Yeah, I have some friends that, sorry. Once again, man. Huh.
Well, but that's exactly it though, is that we've been deprived of these things, that first time that you share a special moment in a hug or holding hands or a cuddle with somebody who means a lot to you, that's going to be so much more significant. um
Yeah.
and I mean that'll be something that I know I'm looking forward to. I mean, I'm single, but what I'm looking forward to when I do eventually have a partner down the road, that first time is going to be special because we're in a different world now,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, to be honest, I think possibly that having that being something special is probably something good, because there is quite a lot of that hookup culture um, happening
Yeah.
sort of in general in our society, and I think it's which I'm sex positive. I don't think that that's something to be ashamed of, but I think that those little things being even more significant now is going to shift society a little bit. I think away from hookup culture.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
mean, I've always been a mushy gushy puppy dog, so what can I say?
I love that.
Yeah,
Well,
me 5'11" mohawk goatee, but then I found out a couple of my friends are going to get engaged and I almost cried. And I was like, I was bouncing up and down and clapping my hands together like I was a toddler about to get Cheerios. Like, you should have seen me.
hey, no shame in that. But that's exciting. That's one of the
It's so
positive
exciting.
things.
Yeah.
Focus on the positive as much as you focus on the negative, right?
It's gonna be so good. I'm gonna like Metal Gear Solid hide in a box as it's happening. I can't wait.
Oh my God, I love it. Well, now we have our last question of the day.
Oh yeah.
What was the first adult thing that you had to do?
Oh, interesting. Honestly, I think it was like the big adult thing I did was deciding to move here
Mm,
and really like because that was um it was bigger than just moving out from mom and dad's. It was a full on, hey, peace out, Alberta. I'm going to the other side of the Canadian world and go. I was like, I'm gonna pop from like redneck Canada to wannabe America, and it's gonna be great. And it was like it was
I've
a
never heard
huge.
Ontario described that way.
Oh, I've heard it described that way a lot.
Oh, it's because you don't live in Ontario. We're kind of like insulated from the rest of Canada.
That is fair, yeah. And it like, well, because I like moving here, I always got the like, so what? You're like a redneck of Canada, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, but there was definitely one day where a neighbor showed me a moose that was in their backyard,
Oh, I love
and
that.
that was a cool time. Yeah,
Moose
people
are
are like, so how?
huge.
Moose are huge and scary, and they're like, oh, we were like, well, because I live near a river valley. It was literally across the street, so we would get like coyotes, and we would get moose, and we would get bears and shenanigans all running around, porcupines, stuff like that. So it was like when people ask me how, they're like, so how Canada is Alberta? I'm like, that.
But like people, even Canadians, like I don't think we realize just how big a moose is until you see one. You know, like you
Scary.
drive up north and you see signs of like careful moose crossing, like watch out for moose or whatever. But until you actually see like a full grown bull moose, like you don't have a concept of like in your mind. I guarantee whatever you're thinking, it's probably bigger. Like this is an animal that if
Yeah.
you hit it with a small car, you lose. The car loses. These things are built like tanks
Hell. Yeah.
and they are
But
territorial.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God. I've one of my best buds and I almost got charged by an elk once. That was
Oh
scary.
God.
Uh, when in Alberta. But even I'm thinking about it and I'm like thinking of adult moments. I still don't consider myself an adult. I'm still just kind of winging it. I've called myself a goblin, a toddler. Like what else have I called? Like I'm not an adult. I am a wannabe person. And I think that's the moment when you become an adult is when you realize, I don't fucking know what's going on. I'm gonna stop trying and stop pretending like I do.
If you want to be an adult,
Then you just gotta give up and like really work through some hard years and then come out the other side and realize, you know what, things aren't that bad. I just gotta do the best with what I have.
yeah.
That's how that one goes, right?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds like the Spice Girls.
Friendship never ends.
Yeah, I think for me it wasn't the moving because I lived in residence the first time and I went to York before I went to Randolph. And at York, at the Kiel campus, everything is insulated. If you don't want to leave campus, you don't have to because there's a grocery store, there's a pharmacy, there's a doctor, there's a dentist,
What?
like everything you need. Well, it's one of the biggest campuses in the world or in North America, I mean.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, everything is self-contained. It's its own like little town. Everything is self-sustaining. We even had York Security, which is essentially like police would rarely come onto campus unless there was an absolute emergency. Security would handle it. So we even had our
What?
own like local police force, basically, minus guns.
Is
Uh,
this what real schools are like?
hey, Randolph is a real school. It's just a private career college that isn't publicly funded, so there's less money.
True. I
You
just
know,
like I was like I talk with my friends back home and they're like, oh yes, I'm studying astrophysics, so I'm becoming a doctor, and I'm like I would go into one room, spin around a couple times, go into another room, shout a little bit, go into another room, sing a little bit. That's what I did.
well, York brings in like I mean, tuition at York is ridiculously expensive, and they bring in a lot of freaking money from a lot of donors, so they can afford to have all that there. But it wasn't the moving. that I would say the first adult thing to be. For me, it was learning how to get around the city without a car because
Mm,
where I grew up, I always had access to a car. I was very fortunate that my parents had two vehicles. And for most of my dad's work life, he has a company car. So we would always have the extra vehicle if we needed it. And because I was the oldest child, I would often do the driving to and from like high school. So when I got to university, having to navigate the TTC and like the subway system and all that, that was terrifying because though Oshawa, where I grew up, is not small, we got 150,000 people, is by no means the smallest city out there. But I never had to take transit out this way, and the transit for the most part isn't usually as crowded as Toronto, obviously, because Toronto is a huge commuting city. So
mm,
figuring out how to do that and to be feel comfortable on the subway, or at least learning how to, because I was paranoid. I was convinced that one ride on the subway someone was gonna like follow me home and kill me. Like I was so like dramatic in my head, but that was the worry of going to this big city. I got a lot of anxiety from it. So I think that would
mm.
be the first real adult thing I did, was figure all that out. And now that I know it, it's so easy to get around the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, yeah, Edmonton 100% is like it's a car city. Transit's all right. It's not the best, but and that was a nice thing about coming here is like the average transit here. What would you say is maybe like half hour?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even an hour on the subway, like it doesn't feel that long, I found. And
Mm-hmm.
um, like within an hour travel on the subway, you can get to anywhere in the subway and streetcar and bus. I mean, but within about an hour, you can get to most places that are important in the city.
Yeah, it's just a couple extra songs or an extra podcast. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
in Edmonton, the average was like to get to school. If I remember correctly, once again, I've aged to the point where my brain's a mashed potato. But like, I'm pretty sure it was about an hour just to get to school, and I didn't go to school that far away. Like to get to West Edmonton Mall was probably about an hour as well, give or take. So it was like it was way more spaced out. So
Hmm.
Toronto, your transit don't work very often, but it's convenient. So TY.
And yet it's the number one, or at least it was the number one transit in North America, which I'm like, okay, it's number one because it's the least bad. Like it's not. Here's the thing that I like to say about the TTC is like it's not that it is the best. I mean, though technically yes, it's considered the best, but it's actually just the least bad because nowhere has transit figured out. There's not a
Yeah.
single place that has optimized transit. Transit most places, except maybe like Japan, because you see in there, like if you've ever watched videos of transit in Japan, it is clockwork. Like things like trains arrive precisely on time. People get on, people get off. There's even people on the platforms that are meant to help push you and fill up the thing as much as possible. Now that is not ideal, obviously, they're being forced to crowd in like that. But the actual thing runs like clockwork. If it is off by like 2 minutes, that's an issue, you know?
Mm.
Um, so at least in terms of in North America, my opinion is just that it's the least bad, which means
Yeah.
that all of them in North America should be doing better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
But you know what? I'm still appreciative of having the TTC because, especially as a poor artist, getting around the city, get to auditions is so much easier when you have ready access to a train or a bus or a streetcar named
Mm-hmm.
Desire.
Sure.
Um,
What are they, performers?
I think so.
What-
Well,
You- I think so.
I'd like to think so. Well, I think that's about wrap up time for us. We've gone through all of the
Sweet.
questions. If you've made it this far, thank you. Welcome to episode two.
Yeah.
Welcome to the end of episode two.
It's been a journey, but we got here together, and that's all that matters.
And you know what? Thanks again for the everybody who has followed us thus far already. Like this is super
Yeah.
exciting to us, and it's almost every day I got a text from Robertson going, "Oh my God, did you check the Facebook page? We got another follower." So you're
I'm
making our
excited. It's cool.
day.
I like it.
You're making us happy, and in turn I hope that we can provide entertainment for around an hour of your day.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, we're just doing this to have fun and to as a way of like, because once again, connection is harder than it's been these days. So it's a way that we get to keep talking with each other, stay in contact, and have fun. It's just cool that there are people along the journey with us.
I mean, the funny thing is we're literally just having what is basically a regular phone conversation with us. We just happen to
Probably
be
just
recording it.
but better behaved.
Slightly better behaved phone call than normal.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Doodles.
Oh my God.
I miss you.